The year was 2157. Humanity had spread across the solar system. People lived on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Life was good, and humans were proud of how far they had come. Dr. Alan Wright sat in his small office on Ganymede, a moon of Jupiter. As a xenolinguist, his job was to listen for signs of alien life. Most days were quiet. He would check the deep space monitors, drink his coffee, and write reports that no one read. Today was different. Alan nearly spilled his coffee when he saw the signal. It wasn't random. It had patterns, complex mathematical sequences that couldn't happen in nature. Someone or something had sent this message. "This is it," he whispered to himself. His hands shook as he saved the data and started to analyze it. After 15 years of listening to empty space, he had found what everyone was looking for: proof that humans weren't alone. 3 weeks later, the world changed forever. The first ships appeared near Earth's orbit. They were huge, bigger than any human vessel. They seemed to be made of something that shifted and changed like liquid metal, but harder than anything humans had ever made. News feeds across the solar system showed the same images. Giant ships hanging in space, beautiful and scary at the same time. Then they spoke. "People of Earth, we are the Sitari. We come in peace and friendship." The voice came through on all channels in all languages at the same time. The aliens called themselves the Sitari. They looked almost human but stood 9 feet tall. Their skin glowed with colors that changed with their moods. They moved with a grace that made them seem like they were floating. Samantha Russell, the leader of the United Nations, was the first human to meet them face to face. The meeting happened in New York, in front of the old UN building. "We have watched your kind for many years," said the Sitari leader, who called himself the Guide. "We have helped many worlds grow and learn. Now it is your turn." The Sitari brought gifts. They shared cures for diseases that had killed millions. They showed humans how to build better ships. They even gave technology that could change matter itself, making food and clean water for everyone. All they asked for in return was to build temples on Earth and the human colonies. Places where people could learn from them. Most people were happy. Why wouldn't they be? The aliens had solved problems humans had struggled with for centuries. Wars stopped. Hunger ended. Disease became rare. But not everyone trusted the visitors. Jack Powell had been a Marine for 20 years before the aliens came. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion and seen the worst that humans could do to each other. But something about the Sitari made his skin crawl. "They're too perfect," he told his friend Ben one night at a bar in Chicago. "Nobody gives that much and asks for so little." Ben shrugged. "Maybe they're just nice. Maybe they really do want to help." Jack shook his head. "Nothing in this universe is free. They want something, we just don't know what yet." People like Jack were rare. Most humans embraced the Sitari and their gifts. Billions visited their temples, which were built in every major city around the world. The first and largest was in New Beijing, a city of 60 million people. Alan Wright watched all of this from his station on Ganymede. He had been studying the original signal for months now. At first, he had been as excited as everyone else. But the more he looked, the more worried he became. Hidden in the math was another pattern, subtle but definitely there. It looked like code designed to change how brains worked, to make people think in certain ways. It wasn't obvious. If he hadn't spent his life studying language patterns, he might have missed it. But once he saw it, he couldn't unsee it. "They're changing us," he said to his computer as he recorded his findings. Slowly, carefully, but they're doing it. He tried to send a message to Samantha Russell, but it never arrived. Instead, 3 days later, 2 Sitari came to his station. They were polite and friendly as always. "Dr. Wright, you've been working too hard," one of them said with a smile that never reached its eyes. "We think you need a break, a chance to visit our temple on Europa and rest." Alan knew what that meant. They had seen his work. They knew he had found their secret. He smiled back and agreed to go with them. But that night, while they thought he was sleeping, he erased all the data he had gathered and sent one encrypted message to an old friend from college. The next day, the official news said that Dr. Alan Wright had died in an accident while traveling to Europa. A tragic loss to science, they called it. 6 months after the Sitari arrived, the first temple in New Beijing was complete. It was the tallest building ever made, reaching up into the clouds. Its walls were made of the same shifting material as the Sitari ships. It seemed to glow from within, calling to people. Thousands lined up to enter on the first day. They walked in nervous and curious. They came out changed, calmer, happier, more willing to listen to the Sitari's advice. "It was amazing," said one woman to the news cameras. Her eyes looked slightly unfocused. "I understand now. They really are here to help us grow." Jack Powell watched the news report from his apartment in Chicago. He turned it off with a curse. "That's not peace in her eyes," he said to his empty room. "That's control." He opened his drawer and pulled out an old military ID card. He hadn't used it in years, but it would still get him into places most people couldn't go. It was time to find others who saw what he saw. As night fell over Earth, millions of humans slept better than they had in years, safe in the knowledge that their new friends would solve all their problems. But in small places, hidden away from friendly alien eyes, a few humans began to gather. People who asked questions. People who didn't trust perfect smiles and free gifts. People who would fight for the right to remain human, whatever the cost. On Ganymede, Alan Wright's office sat empty, his coffee mug still on the desk, his computer wiped clean of all data. But deep in the station's backup systems, protected by layers of old code that the Sitari overlooked, a message waited. A warning about what was really hidden in the signal from the stars. The truth about the gods who had come to Earth. 1 year passed since the Sitari arrived. Life on Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined before. The alien temples stood in every major city now. Millions of people visited them daily. They came out feeling better, more focused, and happier. Laura Chen worked in her lab at Boston Medical Center. As a brain doctor, she studied how people's minds worked. For the past 6 months, she had been looking at brain scans of people who went to the Sitari temples regularly. "The changes are small," she told her assistant Greg. "But they're there." She pointed to the colored images on her screen. They showed less activity in certain parts of the brain after repeated temple visits. "See this area? It's where we question things, where we rebel against rules that don't make sense. And it's getting quieter in all the subjects." Greg nodded. "But look at these other areas, the ones for focus and calm are stronger. People are happier, less stressed. Isn't that good?" Laura frowned. "Maybe. But at what cost? These people are changing. Little by little, they're becoming different." She didn't say what she really thought, that they were becoming less human. Meanwhile, Jack Powell wasn't alone anymore. His group, which they called Free Mind, had grown to over 100 members. They met in old buildings and forgotten, places where the Sitari didn't go. Tonight they gathered in an abandoned train station under Chicago. The air was cold and damp, but no one complained. They were used to discomfort now. "We have proof," Jack said to the group. "People who ask too many questions about the Sitari disappear, or they suddenly change their minds and become big supporters." Patricia Miller stood up. She had been a government spy before she retired. Her gray hair was cut short and her eyes missed nothing. "My old contacts tell me something big is happening in the Pacific Ocean," she said. "The Sitari have built something, underwater, something they're keeping secret." Jack looked around the room. "We need to find out what it is. Who's with me?" 5 people raised their hands. Jack nodded. It would be dangerous, but they had to know the truth. 3 days later, Jack and his team used an old submarine to reach the secret place. It was deep, underwater, where the sun couldn't reach. They expected guards, but there were none. The Sitari were so sure of themselves that they didn't think anyone would find this place. Inside, they found rows and rows of humans floating in strange liquid. Each person had tubes connected to their heads. Their eyes were open but saw nothing. "What are they doing to them?" whispered Sam, one of Jack's team. Patricia studied the nearest person. "It's a man who wrote articles questioning the Sitari. He disappeared 3 months ago. Jack checked the computer screens nearby. They're changing their brains, making them into perfect followers. They took pictures and collected data from the computers. Then they left as quickly as they could. But as they reached their submarine, light suddenly flooded the area. "We've been found," Jack said. "Everyone move." They barely escaped. 2 of their team didn't make it back. But they had their proof now. The Sitari weren't the friends they claimed to be. Back in her lab, Laura Chen received a strange message. It came through an old system that most people didn't use anymore. The message was simple. "Check the original signal. I'm not dead. AW." Laura didn't know anyone with those initials, but she was curious. She used her medical clearance to access the deep space monitoring records. There she found the original Sitari signal, the one that announced their arrival. She ran it through her brain scanning equipment, testing a wild theory. What she saw made her blood run cold. The signal had patterns that matched exactly with the changes she had seen in temple visitors' brains. "They've been programming us from the start," she whispered. Her office door opened. A man she had never seen before stood there. He was thin and pale, like he hadn't seen the sun in months. "Dr. Chen," he said quietly. "I'm Alan Wright, and we don't have much time." Alan told her everything, how he had faked his death, how he had been hiding and studying the Sitari from the shadows. "They're not aliens," he said finally. "At least not the way we think of aliens. They're from another dimension, one where thought and feeling are food. They don't want our planet. They want us, our minds, our souls, if you believe in such things." Laura tried to process this. But why? Why pretend to help us? They've done this before, hundreds of times to other worlds. They call themselves the shepherds of worlds. They find species with potential, guide them, help them grow. Then, when the time is right, they harvest them. Alan showed her stolen Sitari records, documents that proved his claims. The aliens had been to countless worlds before Earth. Each time they came as friends. Each time they left those worlds empty. "The temples are just the first step," Alan explained. "They're preparing humans, making us easier to consume." Before Laura could respond, her computer beeped. She had an email from Jack Powell. Someone named Patricia Miller had given him her name as a possible ally. The email contained pictures and data from the underwater facility. It matched what Alan had told her. "We need to meet," Laura said. "All of us. The free minds and the truth seekers. It's time to stop hiding and start fighting back." That night, in a forgotten corner of the city, Laura Chen met Jack Powell for the first time. With them were Alan Wright, Patricia Miller, and others who had seen the truth. "We're few against many," Jack said. "And the Sitari have technology we can barely understand." Laura looked at the small group. "But we have something they don't expect. We know what they are now, and knowledge is power." Alan nodded. "Plus they've made a mistake. They think humans are like all the other species they've harvested. Peaceful, willing to follow, easy to control. They don't know what humans are. Like when we're cornered," Jack said, his eyes hard. "They don't know what we become when we have no choice but to fight." Outside, the Sitari temples glowed in the night, beautiful and deadly. Inside each one, humans were slowly losing what made them human. Time was running out, but in this small room a spark had been lit. A spark of resistance, of rebellion, of the human spirit that refused to be harvested by false gods. The real war was about to begin. 3 years had passed since the Sitari first came to Earth. Their influence grew stronger each day. Now almost a third of all humans were what people called the devoted. These people worked directly for the Sitari. They looked healthy and happy, but something was missing in their eyes. They smiled, but their smiles never changed. They spoke, but never said anything new or surprising. The resistance had grown too. They called themselves Free Mind now, with groups hidden across Earth and the solar system. Some lived in old mining bases on Mercury, a planet the Sitari thought was too hot and dangerous to be worth taking. Jack Powell led the largest group on Earth. They moved from place to place, never staying anywhere long enough for the Sitari to find them. Laura Chen led another group that focused on studying the aliens and finding their weaknesses. We need to understand them better, Laura told her team as they worked in an underground lab. If we know how they think, we can fight them better. Her team had been working for months on a plan. Today was the day they would try it. In a small room, tied to a chair, sat a Sitari. It was smaller than most, probably younger. Free mind fighters had captured it during a raid on a small temple. Laura checked the equipment one last time. Are we ready? Her assistant nodded. The neural link is set up. But Dr. Chen, we don't know what will happen when you connect your mind to its. No human has ever done this before. Someone has to be first, Laura said. She put the neural helmet on her head. It was made from modified Sitari technology that they had stolen and changed. She took a deep breath and pressed the button. At first there was nothing. Then images flooded her mind. Strange places that couldn't exist in our world. Beings made of light and thought rather than flesh. Memories that weren't hers. When she woke up an hour later, her team was standing over her, worried. I'm okay, she said, sitting up slowly. And I know what they are now. They're not really physical beings like us. They're like mind parasites. They evolved in a place where thought itself is food. The bodies we see are just vessels they built to interact with physical worlds like ours. She drew a rough picture to help explain. They're collective entities, many minds joined together. They find worlds with thinking beings, pretend to help them, then harvest their minds and potential. Her discovery was sent to all free mind groups. Now they knew what they were fighting. Meanwhile, on Mars, in a hidden lab deep in the Great Canyons, Dr. Alan Wright worked with a scientist named Olivia Rodriguez. They had spent 2 years studying Sitari technology, taking it apart and learning its secrets. I think we've done it, Olivia said, holding up a small device that hummed with energy. This should disrupt the frequency they use to maintain their connection to their home dimension. Alan looked at the weapon with hope and doubt. But we only have one, and we don't know its range. We need to test it. We need to use it where it will hurt them most, Olivia replied. Their main temple. Jack Powell received their message through the secure network FreeMind used. He gathered his best fighters for the mission. We're going to hit the new Beijing temple, he told them. Not to destroy it, but to test a weapon that might help us win this war. One of his fighters, a woman named Karen who had lost her family to the devoted program, looked worried. The main temple is their most guarded place. It's suicide. Maybe, Jack agreed. But we're running out of options and time. They weren't the only ones planning a big move. Laura Chen had learned something that couldn't wait. She sent a message to Jack. We need to find Samantha Russell. She's starting to question her Sitari advisors. If we can get her on our side, we gain a powerful ally. Samantha Russell had been the UN leader when the Sitari first came. Now she was their main human contact, always surrounded by Sitari advisors. Getting to her would be nearly impossible. But Jack had a plan. The night was dark and rainy when FreeMind launched their attack on the new Beijing temple. They didn't come with guns blazing. Instead, they used stealth and clever tricks to get inside. While most of the team planted Alan and Olivia's device, Jack and a small group went after Samantha Russell, who was visiting the temple that night. The Sitari guards were taken by surprise. For all their advanced technology, they had grown overconfident. They didn't expect humans to be bold enough to attack their main temple. Jack found Samantha in a private room. She looked tired and confused. We're here to help you, he said, holding out his hand. We know you've been questioning things. We have answers. For a moment she hesitated. Then alarms blared throughout the temple. The Sitari had discovered the intruders. We need to go now, Jack urged. Samantha took his hand. The escape was chaotic, the team fighting through Sitari guards and devoted who tried to stop them. Patricia Miller, Jack's most trusted friend and advisor, was cornered with Jack and Samantha in a hallway. Go, she said, handing Jack her weapon. I'll hold them off. Jack didn't want to leave her. Pat, someone has to make it out with the information, she said firmly. Now go. Jack and Samantha ran while Patricia turned to face the approaching Sitari. They heard gunfire behind them, then silence. Half the team died that night. But they achieved both goals. They rescued Samantha Russell, and they activated the device that disrupted Sitari communication. Back at their hidden base, Samantha told them what she knew. "The temples aren't just worship places," she said, her voice shaking. "They're anchors for something bigger. The Sitari call it the gateway. Once enough humans have been converted to devoted, they plan to open a permanent portal to their dimension." Laura asked the question they were all thinking. "And what happens then?" Samantha's eyes filled with tears. "They come through, all of them, billions of them, and they consume us. Not just our bodies or our planet, our minds, our souls, everything that makes us human." Jack looked around the room at the remains of his team. They were tired. They had lost friends, but the look in their eyes was changing. The fear was being replaced by something else, something harder. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Months. Maybe less," Samantha answered. "They're accelerating their plans now that they know we're fighting back." Jack stood up. "Then it's time to stop hiding. Time to take the fight to them." Laura nodded. "Time to show these false gods what happens when they push humans too far." Outside, in cities around the world, the Sitari temples glowed with beautiful, deadly light. Inside them, humans were losing their humanity piece by piece. But in hidden places, the resistance was growing stronger and angrier. The breaking point was coming. 5 years had passed since the Sitari first arrived. Earth had changed beyond recognition. Almost half of all humans had become devoted, their minds changed to serve the aliens. Another quarter of the population helped the Sitari for protection or special treatment. They were called collaborators. The resistance free mind operated from hidden bases. Many of Earth's weapons had been destroyed or taken over by the Sitari. Humanity was losing the war for its own survival. Jack Powell stood in the control room of their latest base, hidden deep under the old city of Detroit. Maps and plans covered the walls. His face had new scars, and his eyes looked tired. "We're ready to try the disruptor," he said to the group around him. The device that Alan Wright and Olivia Rodriguez had built was their best hope. If it worked, it could cut the Sitari off from their home dimension, making them weaker. Laura, Chen looked worried. "We only get one shot at this. If we fail, they'll be ready for us next time." The plan was simple, but dangerous. A small team would sneak onto a Sitari ship with the disruptor. Once inside, they would activate it and escape. That night, Jack led the team to the landing area where Sitari ships came down to Earth. Using stolen Sitari technology, they made themselves invisible to the alien sensors. They got on board without being seen. Jack placed the device in the ship's power center and turned it on. It hummed with energy, glowing blue in the darkness. "Let's go," he whispered to his team. "We have 5 minutes before it fully activates." They almost made it back to their transport when a Sitari guard spotted them. Alarms blared throughout the ship. The team ran, shooting at the guards chasing them. They escaped by seconds, their small ship racing away as the Sitari vessel glowed with strange energy. The disruptor was working, cutting the aliens off from their home dimension. But the victory didn't last long. The next day, the Sitari response came. It was brutal and swift. They destroyed Phobos, one of Mars's 2 moons, with a weapon no one had seen before. The moon exploded into millions of pieces, killing thousands of humans who lived in bases there. The Sitari leader appeared on all screens across the solar system. "This is what happens to those who resist us," it said. "The next target will be Mars itself. Surrender the leaders of free mind, or watch another world die." The resistance broke under this pressure. Some members wanted to give up. Others pushed for more extreme actions. Everyone was scared. Jack called a meeting of all the resistance leaders. Laura Chen, Alan Wright, Olivia Rodriguez, and Samantha Russell gathered in the Detroit base. "The disruptor worked," Jack said. It hurt them, but not enough. And now they're going to destroy more places unless we surrender. Laura shook her head. We can't give up. But we're losing. We need something more powerful than the disruptor. Jack had been thinking about this for months. I have an idea, he said slowly. We know the Sitari technology can change human brains. What if we used it ourselves? What if we changed ourselves to fight them better? Laura looked shocked. You're talking about becoming like them to fight them? That's too dangerous. We'd lose what makes us human. We're already losing, Jack replied. Every day, more people become devoted. If we don't do something drastic, humanity is finished. They argued for hours. Laura believed they would become monsters if they used Sitari technology on themselves. Jack believed they had no choice. The argument ended when news came that the Sitari had started what they called the Ascension. They were taking entire cities of devoted people, harvesting their minds all at once. Millions were being taken. This is it, Alan said, his face pale. They're opening the gateway. Once it's fully open, their entire collective will come through. Laura looked at Jack. How long will your plan take? We've been working on it secretly for months, he admitted. We're ready to start now. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then we do it. But we need to be careful about who volunteers. This could go very wrong. They set up the enhancement program in a hidden base under the Antarctic ice. 50 brave people volunteered to be the first test subjects. Jack insisted on being the first. The process was painful. The volunteers screamed as the modified Sitari technology changed them. Their bodies became stronger, their minds faster. They developed abilities that normal humans didn't have, like sensing Sitari presence and resisting Sitari mind control. But only 37 survived. And those who did were changed in ways they hadn't expected. When Jack woke up after the procedure, he felt different. Stronger, yes, faster, yes, but also angry. So angry. Every emotion was heightened, pushed to the edge. He walked to a window and punched through the thick glass with his bare hand. He felt no pain. Jack, Laura said from behind him. Are you okay? He turned, and for a moment, he didn't recognize her. He saw only a threat, something to destroy. His hand moved toward her throat. Then, with a massive effort, he stopped himself. He took a deep breath and forced the fury down. I'm here, he said. But it's hard to control. The other enhanced soldiers had similar problems. They were powerful, beyond belief. One woman lifted a truck without effort. A man ran faster than any human before, but they all struggled with rage that threatened to overwhelm them. Laura studied them carefully. The enhancement affects the emotional centers of the brain, she explained. You're all in a constant state of fight or flight. It makes you stronger, but it also makes you dangerous. Can you fix it? Samantha asked. Laura shook her head. Not without removing the enhancements completely. It's the price they pay for the power. Jack looked at the other enhanced soldiers. They were humanity's last hope, but they balanced on the edge of becoming something no longer human. Samantha Russell addressed the remains of the world's governments through a secure channel. We tried to be diplomatic. We tried to fight them with conventional weapons. We tried to maintain our humanity while facing these false gods. Now we have no choice but to become what they never expected. The monsters that will haunt their nightmares. As she spoke, more cities fell to the Ascension. The Sitari were accelerating their plan. The gateway was beginning to open. Time had run out. The enhanced humans needed to fight now, before their own humanity slipped away completely. The final battle was about to begin. The day of the Ascension came. Across Earth, the Sitari temples glowed with power never seen before. Inside them, millions of devoted waited, their eyes empty, their minds ready to be taken. The enhanced humans, now calling themselves the Fury, prepared for battle. There were only 37 of them against thousands of Sitari and millions of devoted. The odds seemed impossible. Jack Powell looked at his team. They were no longer just soldiers. Their skin had a faint glow. Their eyes had changed color. When they moved, they left trails of light in the air. The Sitari technology had changed them deeply. "Remember who we are," he told them. "Remember what we fight for. Don't let the anger take control." Laura Chen watched from the command center. She couldn't fight like the enhanced soldiers, but she had developed ways to track Sitari movements and communicate with the Fury teams. "All temples are showing increased energy," she said over the radio. "They're starting the gateway opening. It's now or never." Jack nodded. "All teams move out." Around the world, small groups of Fury soldiers attacked Sitari temples. They moved faster than normal humans, their enhanced bodies cutting through Sitari defenses like they weren't there. In New Beijing, Jack led the attack on the main temple. His team fought through waves of devoted and Sitari guards. The enhanced humans took hits that would kill normal people and kept fighting. Dr. Alan Wright and Olivia Rodriguez were with them, carrying an improved version of their disruptor. It was bigger and more powerful than the first one. If they could place it at the heart of the main temple, they might stop the gateway from opening. The fighting was brutal. Even with their enhancements, the humans took losses. 3 Fury soldiers fell in the first wave of attacks, 2 more at the temple doors, but they kept pushing forward, driven by something beyond normal human strength. Inside the main temple, they found what the Sitari had been building for 5 years. A massive ring of energy floated in the air, growing larger by the minute. Through it, they could see glimpses of another place, a dimension of swirling light and shadow, where shapes moved that had no name in human language. "The gateway," Alan whispered. "It's already starting to open." The Sitari supreme leader, the being they called the Architect, stood before the gateway. It was taller than other Sitari, its skin shifting through colors humans couldn't even name. When it saw the humans, it raised a hand. Energy blasted toward them, but Jack moved with impossible speed, dodging the attack. "Stop this madness," the Architect said. Its voice sounded in their heads rather than their ears. "We offer you one last chance. Let us complete the ascension, and we will spare some of your kind. We will leave Earth forever." Samantha Russell had come with them. She stepped forward. "You're lying. You've never left a world alive. You take everything and leave nothing." The Architect tilted its head. "Then you choose extinction." More Sitari poured into the chamber. The fight resumed, more desperate than before. Jack and his team fought with everything they had, but they were being pushed back. Laura's voice came through their radios. "The gateway is at 80%. We have minutes at most." Jack felt something changing inside him, the anger that had always bubbled beneath the surface since his enhancement was growing stronger. His vision turned red. His thoughts became simpler, more focused on destruction. The other enhanced humans were experiencing the same thing. Their movements became faster, more violent. The glow around their bodies intensified. "What's happening to them?" Samantha asked, watching from behind a pillar. Laura studied the readings on her screen. "Their enhancements are evolving. The emotional centers in their brains are operating beyond normal parameters. They're snapping." Jack no longer thought in words. He moved like a force of nature, tearing through Sitari as if they were made of paper. The other Fury soldiers did the same, their humanity fading as something more primal took over. Alan and Olivia fought their way to the gateway controls. They placed their disruptor and activated it. The machine hummed with power, sending waves of energy against the gateway. The Architect screamed a sound no human throat could make. It rushed at Jack, its form shifting into something with too many limbs and teeth. Jack met it in the center of the room. They fought with speed beyond human sight, energy crackling around them. "You are nothing," the Architect hissed in Jack's mind. "Your species is food. Your minds belong to us." Jack didn't reply with words. His body glowed brighter, the fury inside him burning like a star. He grabbed the Architect with hands that now looked more like claws and began to tear it apart. The Architect, realizing it was losing, made one last desperate move. It released a pulse of energy that knocked everyone back and ran to the gateway controls. "If I die, I take you all with me," it said, overriding the safety protocols. The gateway began to pulse dangerously, growing larger. Laura's voice came through, with panic. "It's destabilizing the gateway. If it fully opens now, it will tear Earth apart." Jack, now barely recognizable as human, leaped at the architect. But instead of attacking, he grabbed it and dragged it toward the gateway. "What are you doing?" it screamed in his mind. Jack didn't answer. The other Fury soldiers seemed to understand his plan. They joined him, forming a circle around the architect. Together they pushed toward the unstable gateway. As they reached the edge of the pulsing energy field, Jack looked back at his human friends one last time. His eyes briefly cleared, showing the man he once was. Then he turned and jumped into the gateway, dragging the architect with him. The other enhanced humans followed. Inside the gateway, between dimensions, Jack and the Fury focused all their rage, all their pain, all their humanity, into one final attack. The emotional force of their fury traveled through the Sitari's psychic network, reaching every Sitari in existence across dimensions. On Earth, the gateway pulsed once more, then collapsed in on itself. The shockwave destroyed the temple but went no further. Laura, Alan, Olivia, and Samantha picked themselves up from where they had taken cover. "What happened?" Samantha asked. "Are they gone?" Laura checked her equipment. "The gateway is closed. All Qatari life signs are fading. Something hit them through their own network." Around the world, Sitari fell to the ground, their bodies turning to dust. The devoted stood confused, then collapsed as the control over their minds broke. The war was over. Humanity had won, but at a terrible cost. Months later, Laura Chen visited a small cabin high in the mountains. Jack Powell sat on the porch looking at the sunset. He had returned 2 weeks after the gateway closed, the only one of the Fury to make it back. He was changed, his eyes still glowing faintly, his body not quite human anymore. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Better," he said. "The anger is still there, but I can control it now, most days." "Do you regret it?" Laura asked. "What you became?" Jack looked up at the stars appearing in the evening sky. They came as gods, expecting worship. They never understood what humans become when pushed too far. He turned to Laura and almost smiled. "Now the universe knows when humans snap, not even gods survive." Far away in space, an alien ship changed course after receiving new information. The captain sent a message to its homeworld. "Avoid the Sol system. The species there has evolved beyond harvesting parameters. Classification: Predator, threat level, Omega." On Earth, humanity began to rebuild. They were changed, wounded, but alive. And for the first time in 5 years, they were free.